Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to call our meeting to order. So today is August 10th, 2021. This is a business meeting of the North Kingstown School Committee. I'm just going to make a quick note before we even start. We have a sign-up list for citizens' comments. We always used to do it this way. What is difficult for our clerks is we ask that you please state your name and address if you're going to speak, and it's very difficult for them to get the name and addresses from the video when they go back and watch. So is it, I just want to see where it was put. Is it by the podium? Okay, so it's right on the podium, so if you'd like to speak, we'd ask if you could please fill that out, and when we get to citizens' comments, I will take that list, and we'll go off of that. Thank you very much. So, as we go on, we've called the meeting to order, so I'd ask if everyone could please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. And Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Tuesday, August 24th, 2020.
The names, the roll. Sorry.
Gregory Balsbog.
Here?
Lisa Hildebrand.
Here.
Jennifer Hoskins.
Here.
Jennifer Lima. Jake Mather. Sally Schott.
Thank you. And now the calendar, if you could.
Tuesday, August 24th, 2021, School Committee Business Meeting. Tuesday, September 14, 2021, School Committee Business Meeting.
Thank you very much. Any presentations or recognitions tonight?
There are none.
Okay, thank you. So next, we've actually never done this during my time here, but just to give some background, we had a proposal that we rename the turf field, that's not the stadium or anything like that, but the actual new turf field in honor of Mr. Richard Fossa, who was our former athletic director who passed away just over a year ago. With respect to our policy on that, we require that it has been more than 1 year since the person's passing, which has passed, and our policy requires that we hold a public hearing on that. So I would ask, is there anyone who would like to speak? Well, first I'll have a motion to open a public hearing.
So moved.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
And is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak either for or against naming the high school turf field for Mr. Richard Fossa? Okay. I will tell you that, he was a very dedicated employee, a pleasure to work with. Dr. Ajay, do you have anything else you can, add? He was a great guy.
I am definitely in favor of this measure. Mr. Fossa was absolutely tremendous as an athletic director, but also, he came to us just having left Narragansett, where he was instrumental in setting up their athletic field. And the timing couldn't have been better for us because we were in the process of setting up our athletic field. He led that effort. He used a lot of his own time setting up fundraising efforts and things like that with the Booster Club, and put a lot of his heart and soul into that project. And now we are beneficiaries of an absolutely beautiful turf field. So I think it's absolutely fitting.
Thank you. So with no one else desiring to speak, I'd ask for a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
I have a motion.
Second.
And a second from Ms. Hoskins. All those in favor? Aye. And if we could have unanimous consent, I think it just makes sense to bring this item up for approval at this point. So I would make a motion that we approve the proposal to rename the new athletic turf field for Mr. Richard Fossa, the former athletic director of the North Kingstown School Department. And I have a second from Ms. Lima. I had a few. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That passes unanimously. So we'll be playing on the Richard Fossa field. And I'd like to thank the representatives of the Booster Club who brought the proposal to us originally. Okay, so next we've reached citizens' comments, so we're going to need to do a little bit of a slightly different shuffle and move that sign-up sheet off the podium. Yeah, maybe we can put it on the stage, and if I could get the first couple sheets so I know where we're starting from.
Oh, sorry. There you go.
Yeah, so if you folks could sign up off to the side, and we'll leave the podium to the first people. Oh, thank you. Okay. So just a couple guidelines for citizens' comments. We do please ask that you limit your comments to 3 minutes, particularly this evening when we have so many people who would like to speak. If you are able to simply ditto or, acknowledge that the person who spoke before you shares your opinion, that will give us the opportunity to let everyone speak. We do have a policy in the North Kingstown School Committee that we do not run meetings past 10 p.m. for a lot of reasons. If we are in danger of not being able to complete our agenda due to a large number of people taking up a lot of time, it's possible that we may not be able to get to everyone on the list, and we really want to try to do that. So we'd ask if you could be as brief as possible, but yet say what you need to say. So I also have a little clock here. If it flashes red, you're okay. When it turns red and stays red, it means 3 minutes have passed, and we'd ask you to please finish. So the first person who is on the list is Matthew McCoy, and if you could again, even though it's on here, if you could state your name and address for the record, just so that we have it.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and committee. My name is Matthew McCoy. I am a North Kingstown resident. I live at 381 Potter Road. I'm a registered Democrat, and I'm here this evening in support of committee member Lima. I support diversity, equity, and inclusion in our schools. I'm the parent of 2 children who graduated from North Kingstown schools, and I believe that the effort that has been initiated recently to recall committee member Lima is a waste of time, a waste of money, and that the voters of North Kingstown deserve better from the folks that lost the election. That's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Next would be Howard Brown.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. My name's Howard Brown. I live at 230 Lantern Lane East. I'm a resident of North Kingstown since 1999 and a homeowner. My daughter graduated North Kingstown High in 2000. I wanted to first state that several people of the group that I'm with, the North Kingstown Parents Against Indoctrination, were here in the June 22nd school committee meeting and expressed concern that the DEI subcommittee was not operating in a transparent manner. I'm glad to report that shortly thereafter it was announced that a web page had been established for the DEI subcommittee with agendas and with minutes anyway being posted. That was an important step. Unfortunately, we also learned quickly that website that was set up had this logo that was an independent logo, had nothing to do with North Kingstown School Department, but it's like there was its own school department inside the school department. This is a social justice logo, intersectionality, and several of those slogans. Was very inappropriate for being within the school. It implies that North Kingstown schools are turning out social justice advocates rather than literate citizens with a well-rounded education. In any case, our steering committee met with Greg and Lisa, and we want to thank them both, on July 29th, expressed a concern that that was a very inappropriate logo to appear on the website. I have other copies if anybody wants a copy of this. And it disappeared in a few days. And we were very glad that that happened. So that's the first of, so I have a question related to that, which is that we would like to know on whose authority that logo was placed on the website of the North Kingstown School Committee. I have 2 other questions. The second one is, it seems that the naming of the members of the DEI subcommittee has kind of been stacked, and we've asked for a response to the applications of all the applicants to the committee, not just those that were accepted. It has been made public, the the responses of the people who were accepted, but we've been refused the information of the people who were rejected. And there's a feeling that there's a lack of balance on the subcommittee. We've actually now threatened to appeal to the Attorney General to get a profile of the rejected applicants, just so there's some more transparency in how this committee operates. We'd like to know what the committee is hiding, you know, like, who did they decide they don't want? How much time do I have?
That would be 3 minutes right there, so if you could wind up.
Sure. The other question has to do with an appearance of impropriety in terms of a proposal which has been considered by the DEI subcommittee without an RFP, and there have been discussions, apparently, according to the emails that we've got from our APRA request, between the assistant superintendent and a vendor and the certain school committee members. We'd like to get an explanation of what we see in those emails and related meeting minutes of the DEI subcommittee. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next would be Suzanne Tingley.
Hi, good evening. Suzanna Tingley, 750 Hatchery Road. CRT is a partisan propaganda and a communist theory used to divide people. It's ideological indoctrination that is harmful to students. This ideology manifests in the classroom in different ways, sometimes through overtly discriminatory practices such as segregation rebranded as affinity groups or racial shaming, sometimes through lesson plans that rework classic oppressors versus oppressed Marxist ideology with whiteness as the oppressive force rather than class. Sometimes it's through action civics as opposed to civics education, intended to make students into change agents who will undo systems of oppression. Sometimes it's as diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives intended to infuse school culture with CRT philosophy. CRT is deeply personal to me. This is a picture of my son and my nephew born weeks apart. This black baby and this white baby have played together and grown together. They have celebrated birthdays and holidays together. They've been baptized, received communion, and they will be confirmed in the same faith. This black boy and this white boy are friends, they are family, and they love each other. Our children are not racist. They don't see color. CRT is teaching what should not exist and makes our children victims and destroys their hopes for future prosperity, harmony, and equality. Instead of uniting each other, CRT will fracture my family, friends, with tension and mistrust. CRT divides with no plan for reconciliation. I asked for transparency at the last school committee meeting. This is far from what is happening in our schools. CRT is training our children to be social justice warriors and to loathe their country and our history. A recent NK grad told me that he felt no need to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag, and he had no regard for those he didn't ask to die for his country. Another recent NK grad used a Karl Marx quote as her yearbook quote. CRT imposes controversial political views on students and punishes those who don't agree. There have been 0 complaints of racism in our schools, and yet you're planning to spend $90,000 on an equity audit instead of addressing the drug, alcohol, and vaping problems in our schools. You're funding your political ideology instead of addressing that our boys consistently score lower in reading, have lower graduation rates, and fewer go on to college. You're ignoring the socioeconomic gap in learning. CRT is a solution in search of a problem. The school committee goals regarding DEI should be reevaluated at a well-publicized public forum. At that forum, all available data should be released upon which informed judgments can be made as to the proper goals of the school department. No recommendations coming out of the DEI subcommittee should be acted on until all of the 2021 and 2022 goals of the school committee have gained strong consensus among NK residents. Resist CRT. As gatekeepers of our children's education, hold back this harmful teaching that can twist children's minds to hate one another and our country. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Brian Odell.
Thank you. Brian Odell, 152 Salisbury Avenue. And I have two kids that went through the system, and a little granddaughter that will be soon coming in, and a little boy that will be coming soon. Thanks. Facts matter. Some would have us believe that systematic racism is widespread in North Kingstown, even in our schools. That information comes from a tank survey that suggests that 88% of its respondents have experienced or witnessed racism in North Kingstown. That sounds quite disturbing until you understand the data. The problem is that even Tank fully admits this, their survey is seriously flawed. There is a very small number of respondents that are far from representative of a cross-section of North Kingstown's 27,000 residents. Clearly, no research professional would ever stand behind the results of this survey or purport them to be reliable or useful in any way. Therefore, they must be dismissed and never considered for decision-making purposes. The problem is that these results are promoted by Tank and leveraged by the DEI subcommittee to help justify a $91,000 root cause audit to find more racism and then make sweeping changes to the school curriculum. This is unwise and unnecessary. The truth is, real data already exists that shows we have no widespread issues with racism in our town or in our schools. For example, the NK School Department and NK Police Department have each reported only one related complaint in recent years. We are hardly a flashpoint. However, there are some serious problems we should not overlook. Existing, reliable, state-generated data tells us some very important things about North Kingstown schools. There is a disparity in outcomes for students from low-income households across all races. There is a disparity of outcomes for boys versus girls. There's a disparity in outcomes for Hispanics who sometimes struggle with English. There's also a rising drug, alcohol, and vaping problem in the high school. I'm sure you're well aware of these. The question is, what are we doing about them? These are the real problems, not DEI. The DEI subcommittee is a solution searching for a problem. Let's redirect those efforts and funds towards the most glaring problems. Abolish the DEI subcommittee. Facts matter.
Thank you. Next would be Heather Rouke.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. My name is Heather Rouke, and this is my husband, John Rouke. We live at 77 Fairfield Drive in North Kingstown. As a North Kingstown resident, parent, and Rhode Island educator, I would like to express my concerns over the recent curriculum changes laced with critical race theory ideology. From the early elementary grades, the Wit and Wisdom curriculum paints an anti-American picture. The few minutes I have to speak here does not afford me the opportunity to present all of my concerns, but to start, as early as grade 3, students will now be taught to despise the Statue of Liberty as, quoting from Wit and Wisdom curriculum materials, not a symbol of democratic government or Enlightenment ideals, but rather a source of pain. Instead of representing freedom and justice for all, the Statue of Liberty is a reminder that this is only America's professed identity as a just and free society for all people regardless of race. Students will be taught these are romantic notions and a hope that does not pertain to African Americans. While a grade 4 curriculum module does include a brief biographical article on Anne Frank, the focus of this unit is split between a science study of the circulatory system and how figurative language and carefully chosen words can communicate powerful emotions. While this is true, I find it alarming. An in-depth study of the Holocaust or Holocaust literature seems to have been completely removed from the upper elementary and middle school curriculums. Wit and Wisdom curriculum examines World War II in grade 7, much like the EL education curriculum used at Davisville Middle School last year. Unfortunately, instead of learning about the heinous genocide of more than 6 million European Jews and millions of others, these curriculums choose to only tell the story of Japanese Americans in internment camps. I am not opposed to including a look at the internment camps, but this should certainly not overshadow the atrocities of the German death camps. 75 million people died in World War II, 3% of the world's population. We aren't going to talk about that? On the district's website, under the curriculum links, parents are only able to see an overview of a skills focus from Surico. When will this be updated to reflect what is actually being taught? And where can parents find a listing of content, topics, and texts our children would be learning from this coming school year? What curriculum changes are being made at the high school level, and what curriculum materials have been or are being purchased? Parents have a right to know what is being presented to our children prior to their exposure, not after the fact. I would like to know how the school's administrators, faculty, and school committee plan on addressing and rectifying these issues and concerns. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Ramona Bessinger.
Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to speak. My name is Ramona Bessinger. I am a teacher and a mother. I want to tell you all
If you
that
could just state your address as well, sorry.
Jamestown. The whole address? 437 David
Thank you.
Avenue in Jamestown. Okay? Let me tell you why I'm here to speak. I'm asking for call to action to remove Jennifer Lima from the DEI subcommittee, as she is actively encouraging harassment, intimidation, and bullying of decent citizens concerned to uphold the quality of education already embedded in our NK schools and Jamestown schools. Her organization, TANK, openly assumes the good people of North Kingstown and the area, the teachers, the children, and the excellent curriculum are racist. That is not true. Jen Lima uses her role as school committee member to intimidate and bully people into compliance as she needs to go. Our vetted historical and literary curriculum should not be replaced, as it is already diverse. It is already inclusive. Many inspiring and irreplaceable literary voices and historical voices heroically surfaced over the years. These voices belong to the canon of great American authors, not solely because of their race, but because they deftly address the perennial concerns of all humanity. To name a few: Frederick Douglass, Harriet Tubman, Phyllis Wheatley, the poets of the Harlem Renaissance, Martin Luther King, James Baldwin, Maya Angelou, and so many others. Further, I'm here to express my very important concern for the students of all colors. Specifically, I am concerned for the children who are not being properly served by this highly race-focused education that distorts history and our society. We owe it to the children not to stereotype them. We owe it to them not to shame them or teach them to hate others based on their skin color. I stand by my position, and I hope that NK Schools places children before the curriculum mandates dictated to NK by the Rhode Island Department of Education and by political ideology. The proposed curriculum mandates coming from RIDE to North Kingston will further weaponize our children, shame our children, and divide our children based on skin color. Further, the proposed curriculum platforms will erase an objective look at American history and culture. The time is now to speak out and share the truth about critical race theory and the subsequent abuse of our minor children, not only in NK, but across the country. Maya Angelou said, "There is no greater agony than not being able to bear the story inside you." With this new curriculum platform, NK Schools, our children will no longer experience the rigorous, diverse education they are entitled to. You may think this new anti-racist curriculum platform represents African Americans and an anti-racist agenda, but it does not. It is about power and control. It is not transparent. You are not being transparent. This new curriculum platform proposed by RIDE will wipe out a comprehensive lens that teaches students objectivity, American history, American literature, world literature, multicultural literature, and
If you could please wrap up.
rigor. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Elizabeth Finneran, I believe.
you. My name is Liz Finneran, 40 Earl Drive, North Kingstown. My son graduated from North Kingstown, and in fact, I stood with him in the rain, I think, just to vote for this new facility. First, I'd like to thank the school committee for giving all of us the opportunity to speak. That is the definition and the essence of democracy. Next, I support DEI in schools, and I believe students should have equitable access to educational opportunities. And I would like to gratefully thank the opponents of DEI for showing us such predictable response to any discussion about race. The fear and the hysteria gives us an opportunity to, me anyway, ask a favor, which is dial it down, okay? Dial it down. This is called de-escalation. I actually am also an educator, and police know how to de-escalate. Kids who work at Dunkin' Donuts know how to de-escalate. We de-escalate if we're going to have a real conversation. We're not going to use inflammatory language because that's not what critical thinking, not critical race theory, is, okay? So I'm going to quote just a couple of little quotes from a white woman named Robin DiAngelo. She writes a book called White Fragility, and when she first started out, she was a diversity trainer, and she was taken aback by how angry and defensive so many white people became at the suggestion that they were connected to racism in any way. She goes on to explain that the smallest amount of racial stress is intolerable. The mere suggestion that being white has meaning often triggers a range of defensive responses. I appreciate the people who have voiced their opposition. They are perfectly illustrating the reason why we must engage in reasonable dialogue. Reasonable dialogue. Okay? White fragility functions at times even as a form of bullying. I am going to make it so miserable for you to confront me, no matter how diplomatically you try to do that you will simply back off, give up, and never raise the issue again. Please do not let this happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Michelle Gerasole. I think I said that wrong if I remember right. I'm sorry.
You did. Michelle Gerasole, 635 Annaquatucket Road. I'm a parent of a high school senior and a 2020 graduate. I've also given my time and service to this town for 2 years on the North Kingstown Economic Advisory Board and as vice president of the high school PTO for 2 years. I want to thank every school committee and town council member who gives significant time and energy to this town matters. First, I'd like to offer a word of support for the efforts of school committee member Jennifer Lima. On a personal level, getting to know Jen and her family have been one of the highlights of our family's experiences since moving to NK. We moved here for the schools 13 years ago, and Jen's children are the same age as my children, and they've become very good friends. There is no good reason why my white children should have more of a comfortable school experience than her children or any children of any different backgrounds. And there is no good reason why our town should spend a dime on a special election to replace her for doing exactly what she was elected by a large majority to do. Her campaign promises should be of no surprise. We do not solve problems by avoiding honest and courageous conversations about them. It may be easier to deny our challenges, but that's never how we overcome them. We need the school department to ensure a respectful and inclusive environment for all students and staff. We need honest education about race in this country, not to make any one group feel bad, but to make everyone feel more compassionate towards one another. I will close with one small story. I'm a Sunday school teacher at a local church. Last summer, after racial relations in our country became divided, our church elders, many of them black and brown, hosted a series of conversations about diversity, equity, and inclusion topics. I was asked to review our church's children's library to ensure that the stories and photos of people were inclusive, so that the black and brown children coming to our historically white church would feel comfortable and know that they were welcome to learn here. It was a small step in the right direction, and there's so much work that we are doing together there and should do here. We achieve racial equity when a person's race no longer determines their opportunities in life. Advancing racial equity will benefit us all, strengthening our neighborhoods, this town, and our whole country. I support DEI in schools and encourage every person in this room to do the same. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Cathy Pastore, or can't read the last letter, I apologize if I said it wrong. Cathy Pastore or Pastorak, Suffolk Drive? Pastore, my apologies.
Good evening, 121 Suffolk Drive, Catherine.
Could you pull the mic down a little? Sorry, yeah.
Sorry.
It's going to have to go up and down as people
I know,
speak.
I'm short. Catherine Pastore, 121 Suffolk Drive. I want to thank you, first of all, for the very difficult work that you do and for hearing us tonight. I think I'm on safe ground in saying that everyone here would agree that we all want the ideals of our founding documents to be fully realized, and in what we said in the Pledge of Allegiance before the meeting started. We would likely disagree on the extent to which they have been realized. I, for one, am certain that we have some distance to go. In order to get there, we have to be honest with ourselves about what our history has been, where we have done it right, and where we really have messed up. I'm the granddaughter of Italian immigrants. I take absolutely no credit for the accomplishments of our American founding fathers, but I subscribe to their philosophy, and I benefit every day from their genius. Neither do I take blame for the nearly 250 years of horrors inflicted upon the enslaved. My ancestors were trying to eke out an existence in Calabria in the 19th century, when they had problems of their own. I do, however, continue to benefit from a society whose economic power is rooted in slave labor, and which has retained racist attitudes in education, housing, loan practices, hiring, voting rights, law enforcement, and I'm sure I've left a few out. For that reason, I am obliged to work towards righting the wrongs that continue to exist. I can only do that if I know what they are and how they came to be. If our kids are going to help solve our problems, they need to know those things too, the glorious and the ugly, with no constraints on them or their teachers as to where the search will lead them. We also need programs that will address inequality and injustice in order to aspire to the equity that those founding documents talk about. I'm here in support of DEI, obviously. I urge the committee to resist the fear of upsetting our vision of what we think we are so that we can become what we want to be. Please continue your work in seeking to eliminate intolerance and injustice through the adoption of policies and the endorsement of programs that foster inclusion and equity in our schools. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Lisa Olivet.
Hi, my name is Lisa Olivet. I live at 135 West Arlington Road. I don't think I can probably say anything better than the two super strong women who came before me said, but I'm here today to tell Jennifer Lima that I too support her and the entire school committee, and I think a lot more people would be here tonight to support you guys and to show that they were on your side. I was going to say everything that they said, but I can't eloquently say it as well as they could. But I do want to point out that both of my children are here tonight. I am that mom who brought them because I did want to show them that although they do learn about Martin Luther King Jr., Rosa Parks, other individuals, they also should hear the people who right now are also fighting not to give the best way to explain how racism works in our country. So they are listening to everything that everybody says at our home here tonight with individuals who are not for what Jennifer Lima is here for, and they are listening. And I just want you to know, keep up the fight, do everything you can, because maybe their kids have all grown up and gone out of North Kingston High School, but it's the next generation who's listening, the next generation who wants to make this world a better place. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, I have, I apologize if I say names wrong, Lisa Felice.
Hi, Lisa Felice, 13 Loop Drive. I come in support of the good work that has been done and would love to continue to see the conversations continue in this room and in this community. It is the essence of our democracy, at the very least, that we strive for as a community. I would like to see the school committee and the committee looking at the diversity and inclusion to ensure that the NK curriculum content include lessons that teach students to confidently consider multiple perspectives, examine and express their own beliefs, and respond respectfully to the ideas and beliefs of others, just as we expect the citizens in our community to do. I support taking steps to ensure equal and equitable participation for all members of our community, respecting the customs, traditions, values, and perspectives of all individuals. Thank you for your good work, and keep it up.
Thank you. Next, I have Laura OConnors.
Hi, I'm Laura O'Connors. I live at 685 Hatchery Road, and I'm North Kingston resident. I was also in the graduating class of 2004 and a mom of 2. I understand that overwhelmingly the topic at this conversation is DEI and CRT, but I'm here to talk about masking of young children in the school system. I'm a healthcare professional, and I worked helping to keep people out of hospitals with COVID-19 for the better part of the past year, living in a face shield and N95, a gown, and hoping not to bring it home to my children. My children have been lucky enough to exist in a preschool that did not mask them this past year, which was the saving grace for our family, to be able to interact with friends, see their facial expressions, learn how to deal with all of the emotions that these young children are dealing with in a crazy world that we're living in is of the utmost importance. Excuse me. I understand that the CDC guidance right now is for masking. However, this is not a droplet precautions virus. This is respiratory and aerosol. So unless we're putting our children in face shields and N95 masks, it does not make any sense. The mitigation technique is shaky at best at this point, and at this point last year, we simply agreed to this because it seemed better than doing nothing. I wonder what the mental health realizations are going to be 5, 6, 7, 10 years from now, and if North Kingstown is going to be providing any sort of mental health counseling for all these children who are dealing with this abnormal world that we're putting them in. I guess that's pretty much my thought process, yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I have Sean Mahoney.
Good evening, Chairman, Council. Appreciate the opportunity to come out tonight and voice community opinion. I think it's
If you could state your name and address for the record, sorry.
first time doing it. Thank you.
That's okay, sorry.
Sean Mahoney, 57 Clover Court, North Kingstown. Thank you.
Good to go.
Absolutely. So appreciate the opportunity to come out and voice thoughts from the community. I appreciate hearing all of the thoughts from the community as well, because I think it's one of the elements that makes our democracy great, the ability to come out, hold public discourse with conflicting and sometimes contrasting views, and be able to walk away at the end of the night without feeling like you're going to have to go take additional action. So this is a rare occasion worldwide. Not all places on the planet have the ability to have these types of discussions. So I am very thankful for the ability to do so here. So thank you for that. I came to speak on one subject and was not aware of what was going on tonight when it came to the groups from DEI and the support for Ms. Lima. So it was interesting to come into that, and I'm not going to go down that road necessarily or open up the entire book on that, but I did find that as this subject became, very at the forefront over the last 6 months, a year, really, if we start looking at that, where it really came up to the forefront. I was compelled to start doing a little research because I wanted to understand what the three letters CRT, critical race theory, what that really meant. It was being used in a lot of different capacities, and I felt like it had to mean one particular thing, right? So I went to the source, doctors and professors, Derek Bell and Richard Delgado, two of the key founding advocates of that theory, a legal theory that was constructed in the 60s to help with civil rights cases. And I thought it was very interesting. I dug into that theory and read some of the originators' writings. Some of the perspectives that they held and in that theory, in many ways, came across as hopeless if you read them. The idea that the system is racist, the existence of the country is built upon racism, and that, honestly, if you read the professor's words, they make it sound like it's just the way it is, and you're going to just have to accept it, which I thought was very interesting. But as I dug a little deeper, it became apparent that no one would want to accept that as reality. So the terminus of that argument would be that if racism is in fact systemic in our country and our society, the United States is in fact a systemically racist country, then the only way to resolve that evil is to undo the system. And so I just encourage the proponents, diversity, equality, inclusion, all admirable things that should be elevated and pursued in all areas. But the ideas espoused in, no kidding, the CRT element of it, I think it would be interesting to see if the professors who brought this forward in the law schools in which they taught it really saw it as an avenue, oh, well, you know what, actually it should start in grade school, because if we don't start it in grade school, there's no way to undo the Constitution and actually redo our society. So there are a lot of deep concepts within CRT, and it's worth exploring. And I encourage everyone who is bringing it forward as something admirable to pursue to read the source documents and read the authors who actually created that theory, because there are some interesting things there for us, I think. The final, it's only the second, but it is the last. The other topic that I originally came to speak on was the same as Laura, the idea of masking our children. My son is a rising kindergartner at Hamilton, and he spent his first year in preschool there in a mask, and we understood why at the time. But at
Do
the
I
end,
have to ask you to wrap?
Yes, absolutely. A picture was sent home by the teachers as though it was something good to share with the families. Here's a picture of your children. This was a picture of my son crouching on an asphalt pathway surrounded by snow, and his classmates spaced out 6 feet apart, wearing masks, eating their snack, unable to speak to one another because they had been put into isolation with masks. And a year ago, I think many of us accepted that because of the uncertainty of what was going on. We are far past a year, and I know you're not dealing with it tonight, but I know you're developing your policies right now, and I would ask that guidelines, both from the American Pediatrics and the CDC, are guidelines, but they are not a one solution solves everything, right? So, as she mentioned, there are impacts to our children, significant ones. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Next is Meg Carr, or Kerr.
Thank you, Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Meg Carr. I live at 151 Prospect Avenue here in North Kingstown. And I am the mother of 4 children. My 4 children went to through the North Kingstown schools, graduated here from North Kingstown High School. And I'm here to speak in support of the work that the committee is doing, that Jennifer Lima is doing, to try to get diversity, equity, and inclusion more embedded in the curriculum. And the one point I wanted to make on that topic, a lot of great points have been made already, but my children are now adults. And in the adult working world, all the organizations that we're involved with are struggling with diversity, equity, and inclusion. I just, in June, retired from the Audubon Society of Rhode Island. I can tell you that environmental organizations in the state of Rhode Island are working very hard to address diversity and equity and inclusion, because environmental issues have been skewed to hurt people of color a lot more than the white population, and that's a fact. So it's work that we are doing as a society. Putting it into the curriculum through the school system will prepare our students for the adult working world. So thank you for doing the hard work.
Thank you. Next, I have Bob Vanderslice.
Good evening. I'm Bob Vanderslice, 151 Prospect Ave. I'm Meg Carr's husband, and I wish I were half as eloquent as the other supporters have been, but I'm not. So I'm just going to offer my support to Jen Lima and the rest of the committee. Thank you so much for all your hard work. This is not an easy job, and we really appreciate what you're doing tonight and all year long.
Thank you. Next is Brooke Thompson.
My name is Brooke Thompson, and my address is 25 Arnold Avenue in North Kingstown. Speaking as a private individual, I support DEI in schools and believe students should have equitable access to educational opportunities. I also support promoting a respectful and inclusive environment for students and staff of the North Kingstown High School School Department. Jen Lima is a leader. She's an inspiration to not only me, but many others, and a fighter for peace and equality in our school system, as she was elected to do so. And this is coming from a North Kingstown High School senior. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I have Isabella Montini.
Hi, my name is Izzy Montini. I live at 70 Bethany Lane in North Kingstown. Today I'm here speaking as a private individual in support of the DEI subcommittee. The DEI has so far had only 2 meetings, and there's a lot of work that needs to be done to ensure that there is not only an equal future, but an equitable future for all students. It is my hope that the DEI members will accept input from not only those who support them, but those who do not. I'm extremely disappointed that this subcommittee is currently moving at a very slow pace, but there is much to be talked about and accomplished. Something that is clearly demonstrating itself now in this room is division. The 2 opposing groups sit on opposite sides of the room, clap when someone who agrees with them gives a speech, and closes an ear when someone who disagrees with them gives a speech. We are not talking to each other, but rather at each other, and both sides, and even myself, are at fault for that. Instead of arguing with each other, let's work together, and let's sit down and meet with one another. A battle on Facebook with parents is not productive and isn't a solution to our dispute. Finding opportunities to make advanced placement testing affordable so that all students can afford it is a solution. Diversifying our curriculum and expanding learning from solely Eurocentric teaching is a solution. Replacing out-of-date disciplinary practices with restorative justice policies is a solution. Instead of speaking to a room full of people at a microphone, let's go get coffee and let's talk about some of the issues that are on our minds, like the DEI. Let's talk about what we want this DEI to accomplish, or what scares us about the DEI. Maybe some of you don't know much about it, but maybe by learning we can ease tensions around what diversity, equity, and inclusion really means. I think we all have a lot to learn from each other, and I truly believe that we can find common ground, and a ground more than you may think. But this compromise can't be done by standing at a microphone. It's too impersonal. So I'm asking anyone who is willing to, please email me or join me for a cup of coffee, and we can have a real productive conversation. I believe everyone in this room has the best interests of North Kingstown at heart, even if we disagree on how to get there. And I will never stop reaching across the aisle to better our community, because in order for the subcommittee to be successful, we should all use our voices as a collective to fit the needs of the people. We all need our points of view for this democracy to work. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I have Lori Duffy.
Good evening. My name is Lori Duffy. I live at 88 Haverhill Ave in North Kingstown. I've been living in North Kingstown for, I think, 22 years. And as a clinical social worker, I have a private practice here in town. I, too, am here to let my voice be heard about the attack on DEI and to show my support for the school committee to continue the good work that you are doing regarding DEI. I will add that the attack on school committee member Jennifer Lima is just part of the attempt to derail these efforts. As I was thinking about what to talk about today, I was drawn to the words of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and his letter from Birmingham jail in April 1963. And I read through it. I thought, my God, we have not come as far as we wish that we had come. And I'm just going to read a quick portion from that. Dr. King wrote, "I am cognizant of the interrelatedness of all communities and states. I cannot sit idly by in Atlanta and not be concerned about what happens in Birmingham. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. We are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all." I had hoped that the white moderate would see this. Maybe I was too optimistic. Maybe I expected too much. I guess I should have realized that few members of a race that has oppressed another race can understand or appreciate the deep groans and passionate yearnings of those who have been oppressed, and still fewer have the vision to see the injustice that must be rooted out by strong, persistent, and determined action. I am thankful, however, that some of our white brothers have grasped the meaning of this social revolution and committed themselves to it. They are still all too small in quantity, but they are big in quality. They, unlike many of our moderate brothers, have recognized the urgency of the moment and sensed the need for powerful action antidotes to combat the disease of segregation. Those that support the petition against Mrs. Lima are supporting this group and their mission to undermine DEI in our town. This is the same group that compared Mrs. Lima to Hitler. What side of history do we want to be on? Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. I think this one, sorry, a little harder to read, Karen Kuzminski or something close to that, and I apologize if I got that wrong.
Hello, my name's Karen Kuzminski. I live at 22 Matola Drive, and actually, this has been really interesting. I didn't come here to talk about what the main topic is. I came here about the mask mandate. So a year ago, we did not know a lot of the information that we have now, and improper we're finding out that masks are really unsanitary, especially for little kids. I'm a mom. I have 2 kids. I have one in the system now. It also is showing to cause headaches. It's affecting the mental health of our kids. I have a son now who has high anxiety, which he did not before, and I'm starting to see some depression. So it's a little scary as a parent to say that we have to mask our kids when now it's being shown that schools that did not mask their kids have not fared any worse than the schools that did. Masks, they're detrimental for health, for mental health, emotional health, and also physical health. So there's a lot of documentation. If you look online, there's a lot to find outside of what the CDC is telling us. Also, COVID in schools has been, now we're knowing there's a low risk for kids, and they are not spreading them to teachers, and they're getting that. In fact, they're actually getting it less frequently, and they're not showing up in hospitals, and they're not dying like we thought in the beginning. There was a big fear that was put out around that. Asymptomatic spread from children is rare, and teachers do not face increased risk from children. Schools have not driven the spread of COVID-19, and I have a lot of documentation I'm willing to share if anybody on the board is interested. So that is what I wanted to say tonight. I just wanted to say I also work in the healthcare field myself, and so I know that it is not it is not to be feared like we once thought. Even though people are catching it, they are not getting very, very sick from it. They are not dying from it like we are being told. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Aleka Johnson, sorry. Or Alexa, sorry, it's probably an X. Alexa Johnson, Kristen Lane? Okay.
is Alexa Johnson at 39 Kristen Lane. I'm a rising senior at North Kingstown High School, but I'm going to be speaking on behalf of Jacob Pastore, who was last year's student body president, and he just graduated, and he was the class of 2021. All right. As a student who just graduated from North Kingstown High School and only ever attended schools in the North Kingstown School Department, it is very concerning to me that someone who never attended North Kingstown schools and has children who did not attend North Kingstown schools their entire life, and someone who doesn't even have a degree in education or any major related to it, should be telling our school committee what it is that is wrong in our school curriculum and what is or is not an urgent concern. I can tell you firsthand that I have several minority friends who have not only scoffed at the creation of the DEI subcommittee, but feel demeaned by the creation of it, as well as another group in our town named TANK, or Towards an Anti-Racist North Kingstown. They feel that these people are acting as though they are incapable of taking controls of their own lives, and they feel that there are far larger issues in our town. If you don't want to take it from me, take it from them. I'd be more happy to put you in contact with one of the students who feels this way. Furthermore, if you want to talk about what should and should not be a concern in not only North Kingstown schools, but schools across the state and country, maybe we should focus on things such as the drug crisis in our schools. All across Rhode Island, students are abusing drugs and alcohol at alarming rates. I've witnessed it firsthand as a student in our school department. High percentages of students drink, vape, smoke, and more. Some of these students do things far worse than what I've already stated. You don't need a $90,000 audit to examine our school's curriculum. There are more than enough students of all racial and economic backgrounds who are willing to have a conversation with you about issues in our schools. These are real students who know our schools, who live in our town, who experience these issues firsthand. Please talk to them. You can do it for free. You don't need to spend $90,000 to find the problems at our schools. If Mrs. Lima truly cares about our students, she would listen to them. Instead of stating, this is what our students want with no proof to back it up, maybe ask, what do our students want? It's been far too long that students have not had a say in their own education. If you want to prove the fact that you don't care about what students think, then don't take this advice. If you want to prove to everyone, however, that you do have your own personal agenda, keep doing what you're doing and throwing money at issues without even consulting your student body first. Those were the words of Jacob Pastore. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Melissa Forte.
Melissa Forte, 20 Midnight Court. I am also here for the mask issue. I didn't like the fact that it wasn't on the agenda for tonight and it's so close to the school's opening date. So I wanted my son's voice to be heard and also mine. This letter is from him, excuse the grammar. My name is Braden. I am 8 years old. I go to Hamilton Elementary School. I am going into 3rd grade. I did not like wearing a mask because it was hard to breathe and to talk. For the first half of the year where I was playing soccer outside with my friends, I could barely breathe and had to yell to talk, and I hated that because at the end of the day, my throat hurt. I agree with everything that Laura said and the other people that came up here, so I'm just going to read a letter that I intend on sending to school with the kids that was notarized, and I'm going to encourage others to do the same that are for parental choice for masking. To whom it may concern, my children will not be wearing face masks coverings during the school year. The CDC and RIDOH recommendations are just that, recommendations. We have evaluated the data available and considered the health and side effects of wearing versus not wearing a mask and determined that they are more harmful than beneficial to their health and well-being. It is not in their best mental or physical interest that they wear a mask all day, and it will cause them significant harm. We do not hold the school liable in the instance that my children should contract COVID-19, and we will monitor their health at home, and we will not send the children to school if they are feverish. I'd also like to add that my son, who's a very super confident kid, he's always been very confident, he now, over this past year, has developed this anxiety thing where he lifts his shirt over his face and chews on it. So he has holes in all of his shirts. at home. So if people are saying that kids are relentless and resilient, and it's not really affecting them, it's untrue. And I have 2 kids at the school, and it hasn't affected my daughter the same way that it has affected my son. So, thank you.
Thank you. Next is Katie Zimmerman.
Good evening. My name is Katie Zimmerman. I live at 25 Kristen Lane here in North Kingstown. I'm a parent of 2 elementary-age children in North Kingstown Public Schools, and I have been a public high school teacher and a teacher in the United States and abroad in France. And I've worked in public schools with people of various backgrounds from all over the world, in fact. I support diversity, equity, and inclusion in schools. In fact, I believe that these are essential elements of a K-12 education today, and I want that for my children. I voted for the current members on the school committee because I believe and hope that they will work with the school department to foster this in our schools. Initiatives such as the DEI subcommittee are a great start. I have been particularly impressed by school committee member Jennifer Lima's leadership in this area, both on the school committee and in the North Kingstown community through her work with TANK. Like her fellow committee members, I have found her to be very approachable and easy to communicate with. You all respond quickly, all of you, as well as members of the school department, to any of the parents' questions, any of our questions. I also wanted to add, I wasn't going to talk about the petition, but I believe that a recall won't really change anything because somebody else will step up and do the important work. Not that any of that should be happening. I support the school committee's ability to promote an accessible and inclusive environment where all students can learn, grow, and thrive. I hope that the school committee continues in this direction. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Heather Murphy.
Heather Murphy, 41 Mountain Laurel Way. Also want to touch base about masks. I know it's not on the agenda, but you are all in your phases of trying to figure out what to do. I was encouraged today to hear Dr. Alexander Scott acknowledge that masking is a personal choice. I believe medical choices are your own and a matter of personal responsibility, not all of yours. There is nothing more than I believe that we should not mask our children. I have spent the last year and a half taking care of COVID patients. I have some insight. And I have the insight also from the high school's perspective, but I also met a mom yesterday who has, I don't know if she's here today. She has a first kindergartner last year, and she described how wholly terrified her son was to go to school, could not see the reassuring smile of a teacher. These things matter and affect them. So, I don't have that little person perspective anymore. But I feel certain that a decision of masks will bring back the same ridiculous schedule, no lunch or silent lunch in some cases, no bus and traffic jams trying to get our kids to school. And I think we should take the lessons that we learned from last school year and grow, and I wish we could do this in a more concrete way. But the district, unfortunately, hasn't been very transparent in all of the data that was collected or gained from last year. We had weekly testing of, I don't know if it was in the middle school too, but at least in the high school we did. And then we tested our athletes. I hope this is a lesson in itself that we should be measuring our successes and failures. And I'm disappointed that that did not occur. I have requested from the Department of Health the athletic data. I'm told it exists, but we don't know what it is. This is something that should be measurable and used to engage in thoughtful decisions for the fall. As you develop your plans, I want to let you know that the 2 largest cancer centers in our state suspended asymptomatic testing because it didn't yield any sort of positive outcome. No statistically significant amounts of asymptomatic infection, lots of wasted resource, lots of stress, and too many false positives, so it was stopped. I hope that you can now realize that testing our athletes did not yield any good. It harmed them. The mental health that it took a toll on for not only the athletes, but the parents And per the verbal report from the K through 12 leader at the Department of Health, there was very little asymptomatic infection found and no secondary transmission. I hope this year, as you engage in decision making, you also have more responsible data collection and transparency. I hope that we don't have the interruptions in our education experience for our children. To, just send our children home, no lunch, short your schedule. It did have an impact. And more mental health than anything. I think you might recall I spoke to all of you and begged you to at least bring our seniors back to school last year. And it didn't happen, but it was shortly thereafter that the state let it go. But, we've got to look at what our lessons learned from last year and do better for our students. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Shauna Monroe.
Can you hear me? Is it working? Yes? My name is Shauna Monroe. I'm at 880 Tower Hill Road. I did not prepare anything to speak today. I actually signed up a little last minute after hearing a few people that said something of concern to me. I am a mixed-race family. I kidnapped my husband from Jamaica and imported him as special. I have kids at 3 different levels. I have a daughter that just graduated in 2020. I have a daughter that is turning 10 and going into 4th grade. And then I have a little girl going in preschool, going into kindergarten. I have 3 stories of possible instances of racism that have occurred to my children. All right? I am extremely nervous, by the way. I apologize. I have really bad anxiety, but this is important that you guys hear this. My high school senior daughter had one of her braids pulled out during an athletic event while she was sitting in stands with her friends, because this boy knew that she had braids put into her hair. This boy felt it appropriate to remove one while she was in the stands and laughed about it like it was a big joke. She was hysterical. My husband was furious that this happened to her at school grounds. The second story I have is for my elementary-aged child. During, I believe, 2nd grade, I received a letter from her teacher telling me that she is no longer allowed to have her hair free and out because it was distracting. Now, at the time, I did not recognize this for what it was until I saw similar stories on the news about athletes that have been told that they can't have their hair loose. And I went, oh my God, I can't believe this just happened to my child who is in 2nd grade. My daughter also suffers from ADHD. And there were a couple instances where she was sent to the principal's office because of her inability to sit still. And I generally, lunacy, my kid is a love bomb, but she's just incapable of sitting still. And she was almost categorized as a bully because she just can't control herself. She bumps into people a lot. And then the third story I had to share is my husband works delivering lumber to the local businesses. And he was denied entry into General Dynamics Electric Boat where I work because he has an accent, and the security guard refused to let him in because he's not an American citizen. Did the security guard ask to see his green card? No. Did they ask his citizenship status? No. They made a snap judgment based on his appearance and his accent. So when I hear that there are no racist tendencies in North Kingstown, I hate to tell you this, but that is not true. All right? It does happen, and it has happened to my children while in school grounds. It is important that steps be taken to be more inclusive, and I also want everyone to acknowledge how much diversity do they see in tonight's attendees. I want to make sure my kids are safe, educated, and treated respectfully. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, that's the last person who signed up. Is there anyone who didn't have a chance to sign up who would still like to speak? We'll still give you an opportunity to speak. You go up to the microphone. I'm going to just put this down there. If you could fill out your name and address for me.
Okay. My name is Susan DeSimone. I live at 55 Lawnwood Road. I own and operate a child care center just over the North Kingstown line in Exeter. We produce many kindergarten children at Stony Lane and Hamilton, including my own 2 children who just completed kindergarten and first grade at Hamilton. The state never required us to mask children since we reopened after being shut down because of COVID on June 1st, 2020. We have been open since then with no cases. Not one child has had COVID. Not one child has worn a mask. I gave parents the option. Everyone declined. It was fine by us. So, I mean, that says something. Thank you.
Thank you. So I don't have the list anymore, so if the next person could come up and thank you. And just state your name and address, please.
Tracy Wilkinson,
can just leave
72 Pine Tree Circle. For full disclosure, I am the treasurer of Tank, so you can hate me now. But I would like to add a racism story to the one that the lady a few moments ago said. I have 3 boys, class of 2013, 2015, and 2020. My boy in the class of 2013 was bullied at Wickford Middle School, a white boy, fully white boy, with a British accent for being a Brit. Do not tell me that racism does not exist. It does. We as immigrants feel it all the time. People ask you, oh, you've got a cute accent. Where are you from? Oh, I could listen to you all day. I'm a white woman. I can rub that off and walk away. My black friends cannot. My black stepmother cannot. My black stepbrothers cannot. It's wrong. They went around kicking him for an entire day because it was Kick a Brit Day. And then when he came home, he was in tears. I had to email the school. Thankfully, Mr. Merkel was fantastic. And by the time I hit send, the phone was ringing and he dealt with it. But that is one of the reasons there's no list on a police department thing, because people deal with it. We doesn't get as far as a police department or a school committee meeting because people deal with it. And we have to face it and deal with it. The moment we turn away, we're just ignoring it. It doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It just means you're ignoring it. And that's all that's it.
Thank you. Next, again, if you just state your name and address.
Jacob Cedar, 291 Fletcher Road.
Oh, Jacob, someone read a letter you already wrote, so you don't get 2 times.
Respectfully, Chairman, I didn't speak.
No, but someone read your
But I didn't
statement.
speak.
It doesn't matter, sir. You get one chance to have a comment, and you had a comment. I apologize, but you don't get to go twice just because someone else read your words. Would my attorney support me on that? Thank you. Each person can speak once. Next. Thank you.
Hi, how are you? My name's Nicole Villani. I live at 7930 Post Road. I have been in Wickford Middle School in North Kingstown, class of 2004 with Laura Johnson. I wasn't prepared to speak this evening as I found out last minute about the meeting, but I will be speaking a little bit more informed next week about unmasking our children. I grew up in North Kingstown and went to North Kingstown school system. I thought it was absolutely fantastic. This year, I returned to North Kingstown with my 2 boys. I have a 6-year-old who was in kindergarten at Fishing Cove Elementary, and I have a 5-year-old who will be going into kindergarten. When we moved to the district in September, I had to put my son into distance learning because he was living with an elderly family member who is very immunocompromised, and there were so many uncertainties around COVID-19 last year that we couldn't take the risk with transmission. Now that we know a little bit more, I have to say, after going through distance learning, which was very difficult to keep up with as a single parent, you really need an adult that is capable sitting next to a 5-year-old that doesn't know how to turn on a computer, use a computer, doesn't know how to read, by their side all day long, signing into different platforms. However, I understand it was a challenge for everyone, and the teacher made it absolutely wonderful for the kids, but there were, many frustrations for him and for parents alike. So the second half of the year, we decided to put him into in-person learning, and going from a different school, from preschool into kindergarten, having to wear a mask and glasses that would fog up every single day. He has asthma where he can't breathe behind a mask and would come home every single day with a headache. And the first week after school, he sat and wept because he didn't know if his classmates liked him or not, because he couldn't read from his teachers or their expressions a smile or a frown. So I think we need to take a step back and look at what this is doing to our children and how it's emotionally affecting them, what the benefits are from here. It's COVID-19 is a virus. It's never going to go away. So I don't understand if we suggest mask wearing should happen for the rest of our lives, or if you think that putting an experimental vaccine into children of this young age is appropriate and not a huge threat. You know, as a parent, I have my youngest going into kindergarten who struggles with speech and relies on visual cues for pronunciation. He's not going to be able to get those visual cues and will struggle with his speech if he can't see how the teacher or other school classmates are pronouncing words. That's why I chose to leave him out of school this past year, so that he could progress with his speech and his learning at home. I will wrap up since I know that's going off. I'm a single mother which has changed recently. I am the sole provider financially for my kids. I cannot sit at home with them and homeschool them because I have to go to work in this environment, which is very unfortunate. However, I don't feel comfortable with sending my children to school in masks when they are having difficulty learning and breathing and coming home with headaches and stomach aches every day. We have to be able to find a solution where, we're compromising for both sides. I'm not saying get rid of masks for those parents that still want to mask their children, but it should be our choice since we are raising them, and I do everything in my power to protect them and raise them. Thank you.
So I did speak on behalf of Jacob Pastore, so I would like to take this time to speak on behalf of my own thoughts.
I will let you do that because you read his statement. If this is yours, it's a little weird, but I'll let you do that. If you could speak your name and address, please.
Alexa Johnson, 39 Kristen Lane. So I would like to speak on behalf of both of the issues, masks and CRT. To start, I moved from Florida, and band kind of was my solace. I've been playing saxophone since the age of 11 years old or something like that. And band is honestly my true love. I came to this school. I've always been so proud of coming to North Kingstown. I love this school. I've been so proud to be a student here. But this past year was very, very difficult for me because I had to walk into school every other day and I had to be forced to wear that mask. I walked into band and I didn't even know if I was going to even be able to play. But we were allowed to play with masks with holes in them. I don't understand any of the logic with that. People are laughing, people are scoffing, but it's the truth. It's what we had to do. I don't want to have to go back into school and be forced to put a piece of cloth that we don't even know works over my face anymore. I don't want to have to go through school again, not being able to see my friends smiling or laughing. I can't do that. I fell into the worst depression I think I've ever fallen into because of this whole entire thing with school. I didn't show up to school. I was a hybrid learner and I ended up being online. I got nasty emails from my teachers. I've been a straight A student and my grades were slipping. I can't handle this, and I am not the only one. So if the school department really cares about children, students, and mental health, you will not require us to wear a mask. Thank you. It's great to hear some support because not only that, but I feel like as someone with maybe some differing views in my school, I have to be silent. I have to pretend to think an ideal way in order to please my students and get the grades that I work hard for. I know Mr. Auger, my mom emailed you about this book in AP Language and Composition that we were required to read as well. It was by Tanisha Coates, Between the World and Me. I only read the first 26 pages because I had to put that book down. It was the most anti-American thing I think I've ever read in my entire life. And that, I believe, is the start of CRT, critical race theory. Teaching people to hate America and everything that it stands for. I look back at Martin Luther King Jr. He's one of my idols. I'm not a racist person. He's one of my idols, and I believe that he is fantastic, and he would not have wanted this. He wouldn't want people to look back in hatred and look in the future in hatred as well. He'd want people to look in the past and realize how far we've come and love America for that. And I believe that critical race theory would not accomplish this. Thank you.
Thank you. Did you fill out your name and address? When you're done, if you could just, it just helps our clerks with the names. Thank you.
Absolutely. K-Ho, 139 North Road in North Kingstown. We've been in North Kingstown for about 25 years now, maybe close to 30, and our children and our family have gone through the North Kingston School District. I totally support the school committee and Jen Lima in trying to understand diversity, into improving inclusion and diversity, and understanding how race really shapes our school and our society. Thank you. And that's really all I have to say. Thank you, and please keep up the good work.
Thank you very much. And I don't see anyone else coming up to the podium. Okay, if you could. And again, if you could state your name, address for the record, and then just fill it out on the form when you're done, please. Thank you.
My name's Eric Schoenwald. I live at 131 Freya Road here in town. I didn't expect to speak tonight. This is my first meeting, and I didn't even know about this meeting until one of my neighbors brought it to my attention. And I'm struck listening to the arguments. I'm afraid to clap when I hear the rhetoric, which is strong and compelling on both sides. I firmly believe that we do have issues about equity and inclusion, but I also believe in the foundations of our country, and I think we need to look at things through multiple lenses. There's a lot of hatred out there, a lot of tribalism, and I feel that there needs to be discussion. I don't think anyone should be removed from office. I believe elections matter. And I think we've got our work cut out for us. But it's not an either-or situation. And I hope that a lot more study goes into this. I think Jacob's language was spot on. I'm proud to be part of the school district. I'm proud of my children who are in it. They've thrived, but not everyone does. There are multiple concerns. And I just want to thank you for the opportunity to speak and the privilege it is, because of our country, to be able to do that. So anyway, thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you.
Excuse me.
Next.
Hi, my name is Sue Alexander. I live at 211 Earl Drive, North Kingstown. I am a graduate of North Kingstown High School way back in 1987. I have a graduate in 2019 and a current upcoming senior. I'm here to speak tonight just about the masking issue. You know, I listened to the press conference today, and I walked away with the feeling of them talking out of both sides of their mouth, as many politicians do. But it was my choice. You know, I made this decision for my family. People need to, Governor McKee said people need to, you know, find out the facts about the Delta variant and then decide what's best for them. I feel like as, you know, a high school student especially, they got this vaccine. They were told, this is what you need to do, not just to protect your grandmother and your grandfather, but so you could come back to school, to a normal school year. And now these same kids are being told, no, you're gonna have to maybe put that mask back on. When we have looked around, let's look at this room. Some of us have chose to wear a mask tonight. Some of us have chose not to wear a mask tonight. This complete panel, as I see some of you in the middle crammed together, chose not to wear a mask tonight. Some of these kids in this high school are 18 years old. They could go sign up to fight in a war. They can vote. Girls can legally get an abortion at this age. But you're going to tell them you've got to come to school and sit in your classroom with a mask on? It's just incomprehensible to me. These kids are almost adults, a lot of them. Think about that. Think about what you told them. Go get this vaccine so you can get back to normal. And to just rip it away from them. And let me tell you, these high school students, they're out and about. They're at concerts, they're at the beach, they're at ball games, they're in each other's basements hanging out. There is no separation going on all summer long. My son has played basketball indoors, sometimes in this building, with no mask on. Has attended camps in this building, no mask. And now all of a sudden we're just going to rip that right away from them. These kids are old enough to make a choice. It's not even just our choice as a parent. It's the choice of these high schoolers who have done what they've been asked to do, a lot of them. They should have the choice to decide, am I going to wear the mask to school or am I not? If I'm vaccinated, I should have that choice, just as this entire panel and this entire room. Nothing is, we're saying it's rapidly changing. If it was so bad, we'd all be sitting here wearing a mask, but we're not, because we have the choice to choose. Please give these kids back what they deserve. The high school kids got screwed last year. All right, let's give them back a sense of normalcy next year. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I don't see anyone else coming to the podium. All right, I'm going to move on with our agenda. So next would be the superintendent's report. I'll turn things over to Dr. Auger.
Thank you. I don't have too much to report tonight, just to let people know exactly what I said in my email this week. We're seeing conditions change. Indeed, they are changing rapidly, and so are the recommendations from CDC, RIDO, American Pediatrics Association, all of which I've heard from in the last few days. So we're putting this together. It's not an easy process. There are a lot of pieces to this, so we want to make sure we get it right and make it clear and communicate it well. I plan on doing so next week when we post the agenda for our next meeting. That will give people plenty of time to see it before the next meeting and frame any remarks you may want to add at citizens' comments for next meeting. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Shea. Okay, moving on with the rest of our agenda, we have routine items. Need a motion to approve the executive session minutes of June 22nd, 2021.
So moved.
I have a motion and a second. Sure, so when we vote, we'll do that. So all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? So Hoskins is going to abstain from that vote because she wasn't at the meeting. Next, I can disclose that no votes were taken in the executive session this evening, and I need a motion to seal the executive session minutes of this evening's meeting, August 10th, 2021. I have a motion from Mr. Mather, second from Ms. Lima. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? That passes unanimously. Do any members have any items they would like to exempt from the consent agenda? Okay, hearing none, I'd ask for a motion to approve the consent agenda items.
So moved.
I have a motion from Ms. Hildebrand, a second from Mr. Mather. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? That passes unanimously. We already took care of the vote for the high school turf field, leaving the 2021 school budget. Mrs. King, anything there? No. And 2021 school 2021-22 school budget? No. Okay. I don't think your mic's on, just when we, yep, okay.
There we go. No.
CIP bond, existing bond, and future bond. We have a couple things.
Yes, so I would like to first give you an update on our summer projects and how we're doing. So, as you know, we had projects spanning 8 of our schools, with the largest project being the ventilation upgrade at Hamilton Elementary School. So as many of us know, construction has been difficult for contractors, and we've run into a few problems as well. So I'd like to go down school by school. I know that we're all tired, but I just want to give you an update on a couple of our schools and how we're doing. So the Hamilton project is going well. They did have to make a couple of changes because of materials that are not available or that would not be delivered in time. We did start our summer projects 2 weeks late because you know we went into school toward the end of June. So that contributed to some of the materials and just the state of material shortages. It's kind of amazing to me, the things that are back ordered and delayed. It's very interesting, along with some staffing difficulties. But that project is going to be completed, except for the connection of the actual ventilation project to the rooftop units. That's going to get done very soon after school starts. It'll have to be done on a Saturday because the work needs to be done with a crane over the building. So that project is going to get done relatively timely. Staff is not going to be able to get into the building until the first PD day, which is August 30th. That probably would have happened even if we started earlier, because these projects always go right to the very end, no matter how long we have. There are also some bathroom upgrades at Hamilton Elementary School that will be completed on time, but the installation of 2 water bottle filling stations will not happen. We do not know the estimated time of arrival because the water bottle filling stations are unavailable. Fishing Cove Forest Park in Quinnesset, those projects are going well. Some electrical work and some various other bathroom work. Also, the water bottle filling stations at those schools will not be available. We do not know an estimated time of arrival for those units. Davisville Academy work has not begun yet. The scope is very limited. That is expected to be done by the time school starts. Davisville Middle School was scheduled for some exterior door replacement. That is not going to happen before school starts. The materials are unavailable. The work at the high school, which was some ventilation work in some of the athletic spaces, the locker rooms, is also not going to happen before school starts because there is a particular ionization equipment that's pending. Estimated time of arrival is unknown. So while we have had these issues with deliveries and materials, I do want to thank our architect, Jim Partridge, Rick Davidow, who's our owner's project manager, and Martone Services, who's the general contractor on the projects. It's certainly not for their lack of their hard work and not being able to get everything done. They've pivoted and done everything they could, but when we can't get materials, we can't get materials. So I will continue to work with them for us to schedule the projects that are open when we can, when school is out of session, when we get everything delivered.
Okay, thank you very much. Next we have item 2, which is the approval of A&E fees for the Wickford Middle School ventilation. That's the same thing twice, right? I just see 2 lines.
Yeah, actually, one of them is just the attachment information.
Oh, okay, got it. Okay, good. Okay.
So we have a unique opportunity to be able to do some infrastructure work using the ESSER 2 funds that the government has issued to the district. Dr. Mansiri has been able to set aside from all of her other requirements in the ESSER funds approximately $300,000 for consulting fees that we would need to plan the Wickford Middle School building ventilation project. So to remind everybody, Wickford Middle School is the only school that has no ventilation system at all. So right now, Hamilton Elementary School has a bad air out ventilation. They do not have a good air in ventilation system, and that's what we're working on this summer that's going to get completed. Wickford Middle School doesn't have any system at all. So Dr. Mansiri was able to put aside $300,000 in the first ESSER 2 grant. She believes that she'll also be able to put aside funds, significant amount of funds from ESSER 3 once those funds are made available so that we can do this project. The question that I had to RIDE officials is, what exactly is the time limit that the federal government would have on the lifespan of infrastructure projects completed using the ESSER funds? And I'd like to read you an email that I received from Joe De Silva, who is a school construction coordinator at RIDE. He had said that, unfortunately, he doesn't have a clear-cut answer for us. He said, in an attempt to provide us with an answer, the state default for capital projects, he offers the following information. The school construction regulations specify the life of capital projects as 50 years, which applies more so to passive building elements rather than active building elements. So obviously, you know, your brick and mortar around the building, the roof, that kind of thing. It's a standard of the industry that active HVAC systems have much less than a 50-year lifespan. As we all know and have experienced, the process of decommissioning schools is a very public process and can take many years to materialize, if at all. Given the health and safety issues of HVAC, particularly during this COVID time, I would not hesitate to proceed with the health and safety HVAC repairs, since our first order is keeping our learners safe. So, in order to be transparent to you, you know, I would normally come to you and say, you know, in order for a project to be reimbursed by RIDE, you know, our reimbursement or to follow some sort of protocol, the project needs to have a lifespan of XYZ ABC. I don't have that information for you, as you can see, for the ESSER funds. However, I would stand behind the use of the ESSER funds for this ventilation system for Wickford Middle School, no matter what happens down the line. I've been in this district for 9 years, and the town of North Kingstown still does not have a consistent, reliable plan for funding capital infrastructure. We haven't put a dime into Wickford Middle School in, I can't even tell you when. So I believe that passing up this opportunity to actually put a ventilation system into that building, you know, it probably is a couple $1 million. We're thinking it's going to be in the $2 or $3 million range. I just don't know how we can pass that up right now, because we could be arguing for 10 more years on what we're going to do with Wickford Middle School. We have to start putting money into that building, or we have to start making some solid decisions pretty fast, because these things take time. New buildings take time, everything takes time, and I just don't see how we can pass this up.
Okay. So my main question would be, I mean, is there, at what point do you think you would have better guidance on what that look back would be? I mean,
the federal government has not provided any, so in my mind, that means silence is an approval. There is no information in the multiple documents that the federal government has issued on the billions of dollars of infrastructure money that they're giving out on any lifespan. If there was one, RIDE would have given it to me.
So you don't know of any limitation that they would, okay.
No.
And now is the assumption that, I know you can cover the A&E fees from the ESSER grant, to what extent do you think you could fund the full project with that type of funds?
I believe we could fund probably 75 to 80% of that. So now, along with these fees, if you approve the A&E fees tonight, we are going to have to go to bid for an owner's project manager, because the project is over $1.5 million, and a commissioning agent, because it's HVAC. When I did speak to, and now don't forget, there's also another source of funding from the town. The town's getting $10 million, and $1.8 million of that is ours. I don't know any specifications on that. The town manager hasn't mentioned anything, except that that's the number that I keep seeing. So any shortfall could come from that, or it could come from fund balance. We do have fund balance monies. I actually had hoped that we could even, if we had enough money, we can even take a look at the Quinnesset Elementary School rooftop unit replacement. We had planned that project. We were ready to go with that project, and then we shut down for COVID. I really want to get that project back out to bid again and get that paid somehow, some way. But I believe the vast majority of the Wickford Middle School project we will be able to fund using ESSER 3 funds that Dr. Mansieri can put aside for us.
Okay. And just so we can clarify, because I guarantee you that most of the people sitting out in that audience don't have a clue what an ESSER 3 fund is. If you could just explain a little bit what that means and the difference between our, normal operating funds and reserve funds.
So there have been several different federal funding buckets of money, if you will. And ESSER is the acronym that's been used. It's from the American Rescue Plan. And it's how the funds are being allocated to cities and towns. So we had ESSER 1 funds that were a while back, CRP they were calling them. There have been very many different grant funds from the government that go through the Rhode Island Department of Education. And the second batch is really the ESSER 2 funds that Dr. Mansieri worked on with specifications from RISE. She submitted to RIDE, and we do have approval on those funds, by the way, on what Dr. Mansieri and her team submitted to RIDE. We just received that final approval, what she submitted. So this $300,000, in the consulting fees is approved. And then ESSER 3 is the last, what I believe is the last part of the American Rescue Plan, the CARES Act, ESSER funds. There's so many acronyms that are being used. But basically, it's another bucket of federal funding that has parameters around it. And one of the parameters for use can be for infrastructure improvements for projects related to ventilation and other COVID-related building upgrades.
Okay. And so just for anybody who didn't catch that, so they're not loans, they're not repaid.
Not at all.
They're not state
Correct.
funds, they're not town funds.
Not town funds, they're all federally funded, they're everybody's tax dollar, but they're not your
And if we
local
don't use
tax
it, it
dollar.
goes somewhere else, essentially.
That is correct. If we don't use them, then they'll just go to somebody else who will use them. This is not a let's give back the money and see if we're saving, $20 for every North Kingstown federal tax dollar. That's not how federal tax dollars work.
Thank you. Okay, so we'd need a motion to approve item C2. I have a motion from Mr. Mather and a second from Ms. Lima. Any discussion? We just had a whole lot of questions and answers and information. Any members have any questions for Mrs. King or the administration? Okay. Then I will ask all those in favor. Aye. Any opposed? That passes unanimously. Next, we have disposal notification. Anyone have any questions on the items that were in there? And our financial reports, which are for June 2021, which I always point out, people talk about transparency. We attach our check register and cash reconciliations for the entire month, both by alphabetical and also by dollar amount, biggest to smallest. If you have any interest in what checks have gone out from the school department, they're all there for you to take a look at. Any questions from anyone? Then we've reached the end of the agenda. I want to thank everyone. I meant to do this before people get bored and leave, but I want to thank everyone who spoke tonight. We try to give every opportunity for everyone to have a say. I think we were able to do that tonight. I'm very glad that we were able to give so many people a chance to speak. We may not respond to the questions and comments right now, but we do listen and we hear what everyone has to say. I think it's pretty clear that from hearing what people had to say, there's nothing that we're ever going to do that's going to make everyone in the room happy. We do the best that we can. Some people are going to agree and disagree, and that's what democracy is all about. It was casually mentioned tonight. I say it often, and this is a classic example. Democracy isn't always pretty. It can look like it did tonight, but it sure beats the alternatives, and this is what it's all about. So I want to thank our community, and I do want to echo some of the from my own personal opinion, some great comments were made about trying to, find the middle ground and get together and work together. I think that's really something we need to strive for, and at least for myself, I can tell you that I'm trying to do that as a representative of all of you, and I think my colleagues would say the same. So, sorry for the speech at the end, but thank you. I need a motion to adjourn. I have a motion from Ms. Hoskins, second from Mrs. Lima. All those in favor? Aye. We're adjourned. Thank you for coming.